will start in March 2025. Yesterday, 25th March 2025, he appeared to have redeemed his promise, except that his first case was not held in a court of law, but rather at a press conference. He mounted the political pulpit to begin and complete a trial of Kwabena Eduboahen and his wife. Mr. Ayini was the lead prosecutor of the accused persons whom he had gagged by keeping them in custody and telling of their purported crimes to journalists based on what he called his investigations. The Attorney General proceeded thereafter to constitute himself into a judge and upheld his own claims and then pronounced the accused guilty. In his conclusive ruling, he also threatened other public officers. But in spite of all this, Dominic Ayini could not issue a sentence upon the accused because trials are not conducted at a press conference. And now, 24 hours after his press conference, the accused persons are yet in custody and yet to be charged. So, was this all a big show, or should we expect some substance soon? Well, will Dominic Ayini's anchor hold out the storms of legal argument when the matter arrives in a court of competent jurisdiction, where the provisions of the Criminal Offences Act 29 and Criminal Procedure Act 30 will reign supreme? Of course, it will be laced with constitutional provisions, especially of Chapter 5. Well, we wait to see as the accused are yet to be charged. But will they be charged? Defense counsel Atachian says the Attorney General's presser was novel and full of defamatory statements for which he is preparing a civil action. Lawyer Balfour will be in the studio live on TV. And wait a minute, news just coming in suggests that the said Eduboahen might be closer to John Mahama and his family and the Assemblies of God Church than he is to Akufo-Addo and his family and the Rich Church. What does this mean? All of that coming up tonight. For this and much more on politics of oral, persecution and prosecution, NDC versus NPP. Join us tonight on TV, online, on Facebook, and on DSTV channel 277.
It was a gallant decision. The Commonwealth could easily have divulged into almost a whites-only club. So it was vitally important that Nkrumah stay in to cement the loyalty of Ghana to the whole Commonwealth idea. So for Nkrumah to move out at that time would have been catastrophic for British political prestige in the world.
There's an archive of Nkrumah and the Queen dancing together. Yes. You know, here was a woman whose country, whose family once represented empire, was there dancing with their president.
A man could not have done it, because here is our president being respected enough by Queen of England for her to put her arms around him. And she was fairly graceful. She danced like a white woman, but a good white woman.
It's like another version of dad dancing.
Precisely.
The Queen had shown her resolve in Ghana, and there was no sign of the shy young monarch when she joked about the birth of Prince Andrew.
Mr. President, it was a great disappointment to me when my visit had to be postponed 2 years ago. I hope that in due course my son Andrew will be able to come here himself. And perhaps make amends for the inconvenience he caused.
Converged on the airport, hoping to be among the first to see the royal lady of whom they'd heard so much. Most of the tribal chiefs were there, and 40 paramount chiefs, with umbrellas to indicate to the knowing the degree of rank importance. One apologetically explained that as accommodation in Accra was limited, most of them had brought only one wife. Drums announced the arrival of the aircraft. President and Mrs. Nkrumah arrived with members of the government and other persons of importance. And what a majestic sight when the giant Boeing taxied in. detail was omitted that stamped this as the most memorable occasion in the history of the airport. Her Majesty and the Duke of Edinburgh were here at last. 55 minutes late indeed, but that was owing to the fog-postponed takeoff at the London end. As the Queen was escorted by the President, the Duke walked with Mrs. Fathia Nkrumah, the Egyptian-born lady whom the President married 4 years ago. The Osajifo, as Nkrumah loves to be called, the word means redeemer, presented the chiefs and others of note. Their obvious pleasure showed how keen the disappointment would have been if Her Majesty had not come to Ghana. It all seemed to illustrate the mystique of the monarchy. For while Ghana insists on being a republic, and makes it clear to the people that Her Majesty is not their queen, all at the airport received her with as much enthusiasm as if she ruled over them by divine right. The chiefs and such followers as they allowed made up a total of more than 3,000. Quite apart from the wives already mentioned, some of them have more than 50 children. It's as well that most of them stayed at home. When all the greetings and presentations were over, the President and his guests began the 6-mile drive to the Christiansborg Castle. The Duke rode with Madame Nkrumah. The route was lined by fully 350,000 people. Next day, there was a parade of the armed forces in the Queen's honour. Black Star Square cost the strained Ghanaian exchequer £1 million to lay out. But the President needs such an arena when he addresses mass meetings of his people. Hot for you, sir? What must it be for the visitors? But now all eyes were on the troops. British trained and displaying that the highest military traditions were being followed in these days of independence. The Army numbers 6,000. The National Police, 10,000. The pick of them lined up for inspection by the Queen and the President. The Queen could well understand with what pride Nkrumah and his people look upon the army. Independent Ghana is a very young nation, only 4 years old. It was not proclaimed a republic until last year. This was a formal ceremony. On the following day came an informal one, the surfboat regatta, and the display of skill used in civil purposes. As Accra is without a harbour, ships have to anchor a mile out in the roads and be loaded and unloaded by surfboat. Each has a helmsman and 10 paddlers, and as they pack 1 3/4 tons of cargo, and the boat weighs 1,800 weights, strength as well as skill is needed to fight the breakers. The regatta was seen by Her Majesty from a Mogul pavilion, a portable one which will be much used during the tour. And here's that strength and skill we mentioned. Naturally, the people of Accra are very fond of the surfboats and the men who man them. Today, they have one regret. When the huge artificial harbour at Tema, 6 miles away, is completed, the surfboats will be out of business. Perhaps that was one reason why the 1,000 men and the 115 boats taking part determined to put up a fine show. How well they earned their applause. More of the real Ghana was seen at the Makola Market, an association of 80,000 members. Here the Queen met the people, indeed almost rub shoulders with them. Every visitor to Accra wants to see the mammies, the plump stallholders who realize that silence has no place in salesmanship. Anyway, it's all here. Gay clothes, they have to be gay to sell in Ghana, spices, vegetables, and doubtless detergents. Impossible here to be unaware of how warm-hearted, vital, abounding with life are the lovable people of Ghana.
The Women's Development Bank. You have put $51 million allocation, 51 million cedis, 51 million cedis allocation in this budget for the Women's Development Bank. And then you have put 70 million cedis for research at Jubilee House. You see your priorities? The budget is beginning to betray your priorities. You give all of the women in Ghana who are looking for this bank 51 million, and then you give research at the office of the president 70 million Ghana cedis. You are beginning to see your priorities. Honorable Deputy Minister, you told us that something has happened that's never happened. The president has gone to negotiate minimum wage. How much? 10%. By the way, the previous administration did way better, 25% plus. But while you are increasing minimum wage by 10%, you have increased the compensation budget at the Office of Government Machinery by over 720%. Over 720%. This is what the leader of the minority said, that very soon we will see the true colors of the umbrella. You see, your priorities are beginning to show. You need not less than about 1 billion Ghana cedis to close the infrastructure gap within senior high schools. You say you don't have fiscal space, you don't have money for it, but you have found 4.1 billion cedis to buy gold. Gold that was being bought from liquidity that was being brought into the jurisdiction by foreign companies that wanted to buy the gold. Now you want to take taxpayers' money, 4 billion Ghana cedis, to go and buy gold. Are you seeing your priorities now? You have made available 100 million Ghana cedis for capital expenditure at the Office of Government Machinery. What are you buying there? More cars or what? 100 million Ghana cedis for capital expenditure. And yet, you say to the young people of this country that there is no space. Paragraph 478.
Attorney General Dominic Ayine promised during his first presser that prosecutions will start in March 2025. Yesterday, 25th March 2025, he appeared to have redeemed his promise, except that his first case was not held in a court of law, but rather at a press conference. He mounted the political pulpit to begin and complete a trial of Kwabena Edubuahen and his wife. Mr. Ayine was the lead prosecutor of the accused persons whom he had gagged by keeping them in custody and telling of their purported crimes to journalists based on what he called his investigations. The Attorney General proceeded thereafter to constitute himself into a judge and upheld his own claims and then pronounced the accused guilty. In his conclusive ruling, he also threatened other public officers. But in spite of all this, Dominic Ayine could not issue a sentence upon the accused because trials are not conducted at a press conference. And now, 24 hours after his press conference, the accused persons are yet in custody and yet to be charged. So, was this all a big show, or should we expect some substance soon? Well, will Dominic Ayine's anchor hold out the storms of legal argument when the matter arrives in a court of competent jurisdiction, where the provisions of the Criminal Offences Act 29 and Criminal Procedure Act 30 will reign supreme? Of course, it will be laced with constitutional provisions, especially of Chapter 5. Well, we wait to see as the accused are yet to be charged. But will they be charged? Defense Counsel Atachia says the Attorney General's presser was novel and full of defamatory statements for which he is preparing a civil action. Lawyer Balfour will be in the studio live on TV. And wait a minute, news just coming in suggests that the said Edubuahim might be closer to John Mahama and his family and the Assemblies of God Church than he is to Akufo-Addo and his family and the Rich Church. What does this mean? All of that coming up tonight. For this and much more on politics of oral, persecution and prosecution, NDC versus NPP. Join us tonight on TV, online, on Facebook, and on DSTV channel 277.
And welcome to the show. Tonight is going to be very interesting because we have prepared the show for you to give you all the information coming from Dominic Ayini's press conference. But just as we are coming into the studio, very, very disturbing occurrence. Felix Kwasi Ofosu has penciled a press statement indicating that at least 3 petitions have gone to His Excellency the President for the removal of the learned Chief Justice Gertrude Torkornoo. As it is, the petitions, according to Felix Ofosu Kwasi, have been forwarded to the Council of State, and tonight we're going to get a little bit into that by going to the constitutional provisions that will be relied on if a prima facie case was achieved. Very, very interesting, very disturbing. Let's get onto the touch screen and deal with it. Our big story tonight is the fallout from Dominic Ayini's press conference. What did he say? What did he not say? What does the posture mean? Etc., etc. And then the very bizarre response from Mr. Solomon, the guy who was at the Ghana Infrastructure Fund, where Dominic Ayini said that he fled. He replied in the press statement very boldly and feisty, indicating that tomorrow, Wednesday, at 2 p.m., he has a scheduled Zoom meeting with officials of the National Investigations Bureau. He is at a total loss, while the learned Attorney General, the boss of all of these institutions, will hold a press conference and say that he has absconded from the jurisdiction, that is in Senegal, and they are not sure when he's coming. He was completely perplexed. But what does all this portend? Let's get onto the touch screen and begin our show tonight with a very unfortunate development, what we're hearing about the Lord Chief Justice's purported petition. This will not be the first time a petition is coming to the President for the removal of the Chief Justice. This one is particularly worrying because of the undertones. Now, the story came in just as we were coming to press. So tonight we'll not be able to do a lot. But Thursday, we'll bring you so much detail about what we know about the moves, the actions, the shenanigans, everything that is being done within the courts of some of the members of the NDC. We know that there are some of the members of the NDC who find this intention to remove Chief Justices completely preposterous. And they are also sounding their voice to President Mahama. But there's a lot inside to share with you. Now, the petition that has gone to President Mahama is not completely disclosed in Felix Kwasi Ofosu's document. But he just says that there are 3 petitions. So let's just quickly take you to the constitutional provision that perhaps will be used. This is the petition here. This is the document from Felix Kwasi Ofosu. It's today, Tuesday, 25th March. President Mahama consults with the Council of State on 3 petitions for the removal of the Chief Justice. President Mahama, it says, has received 3 petitions from various persons seeking the removal of the Chief Justice. The President has forwarded the 3 petitions to the Council of State to commence the consultation process mandated by Article 146 of the 1992 Constitution. I believe that's what it is. Now let's get to Article 146 and see what the provision provides. Article 146, removal of Chief Justice of the Superior Courts, removal of justices of the Superior Courts and chairman of regional tribunals. It says, 1461, a justice of the Superior Court or a chairman of a regional tribunal shall not be removed from office except for stated misbehavior or incompetence on grounds of inability to perform the functions of his office arising out of infirmity or body of mind. 6 says, where the petition is for the removal of the Chief Justice, which is what we are currently dealing with, the President shall, acting in consultation with the Council of State, appoint a committee consisting of 2 justices of the Supreme Court, one of whom shall be appointed chairman by the president, and 3 other persons who are not members of the Council of State, nor members of Parliament, nor lawyers. 7. The committee appointed under Clause 6 of this article shall inquire into the petition and recommend to the President whether the Chief Justice ought to be removed from office. 8. And this is the important one. All proceedings under this article shall be held in camera, and the Justice or Chairman against whom the petition is made is entitled to be heard in his defense by himself or by a lawyer or other expert of his choice. 9. The President shall in each case act in accordance with the recommendations of the committee. This is very interesting, and we're going to give you the history of this provision of the 1992 Constitution and show you the philosophy that was behind it. We'll come to that in a minute. Now, these are the people who are going to be very important at the Council of State in dealing with the petition. Now, why do we say they are important? Because Sophia Akuffo here, we understand, chairs the Judicial Committee of the Council of State. Now, this is a judicial document forwarded from the President's office to the Council of State. In those circumstances, it will most likely go to the Judicial Committee of the Council of State. And there, Sophia Akuffo is chair. So she would have a lot to do with this petition. Also is her Lordship Justice Adinira. I think she's also Sophia Agency. I can't remember her first name. Justice Adinira, former Supreme Court judge, is also on that committee. So these 2 ladies are going to be very, very important in making the decision as to whether the president, as to whether a prima facie case has been made or not. Now, the letter from Ofosu-Kwakye is not clear. It doesn't say the word prima facie. It's not too clear whether the Council of State is invited to make a prima facie case or that a prima facie case has already been made by the President himself and is forwarded to the Council of State. Because the law says the President in consultation with the Council of State. We are not sure. The law didn't say what level of consultation, whether the Council of State should assist the President to make the prima facie case or whether that case the Attorney General assists the President to do so. We're still learning, and we'll find out what these details are. But these are the important, 2 important women and 1 man who are going to make this decision either to the left or to the right. The Honorable Doe Adjahor, I'm not done, can I have? The Honorable Doe Adjahor, former Speaker of Parliament and former MP for Aveno Ave. Many years ago, he was the Chief Whip of the NDC. Is the Chairman of the Council of State. And these 3 persons, 2 ladies and 1 man, are going to be very instrumental in making the decision. So now, Sophia Akuffo herself has a bit of history with this because here is an article here. It is November 2018, and it says, remove incompetent Sophia Akuffo as Chief Justice, Mensa Thompson. A petition was sent to President Akufo-Addo that Sophia Akuffo had engaged in some land, cantonment land, Laboni land, something, and therefore they were asking for her removal. So Sophia Akuffo went through that process and she survived because as far as President Akufo-Addo was concerned, it was not substantive enough to grant a prima facie, so he dismissed the petition. Also here, Akufo-Addo petitioned to remove incompetent Chief Justice, and that was also in 2018. So Sophia Akuffo herself survived at least 2 petitions against her for her removal, which Akufo-Addo thought was completely flimsy, preposterous, and out of 10. Now she would have a very important decision to make about the Supreme Court that she left behind, now led by Gertrude Torkornoo. Sophia will have a very important decision to make as to whether Gertrude Torkornoo, the petitions that have come, those 3 petitions. Now, on the next edition of our program, we're going to, we think we know at least one of the petitioners. We think we know one petitioner. And we're going to give you the history of the petitioner and his machinations within the court system, particularly the Superior Court of Judicature, the High Court, the Court of Appeal, and the Supreme Court. We're going to tell you a lot, a whole lot, because we had heard about the petitions that were on President Mohammed's desk last week. So here we had been preparing our research in case the petition comes. What are we going to do? We were just taken by surprise this evening. We didn't know that it was going to come today, but we had heard last week that there was 1 petition before the president. So that will be dealt with in extenso, as it were. Now, let's get back to the constitutional provision. And I want to talk about these 2 men. I just have 2 more minutes to do the story and I'm out. Now, this is Professor Kwame Nahoi, and this is Mr. Chachuchi Kata, but he's also a professor because he's quite learned. Now, these 2 men were responsible largely for drafting the 1992 Constitution. I think they did an excellent job. Now, they both had responsibility. Mr. Chikata, I guess, had more responsibility because it was Mr. Chikata's responsibility to deliver a constitution that will be palatable to the military junta to aid the decision by Rawlings to transfer himself from a military ruler to a civilian ruler. In the circumstances, Mr. Chikata's job was very difficult, and he discharged it with a distinction. What he did, and that is why we are shouting about constitutional amendment, because the Constitution has served that purpose of making it look like the authority of a military junta in the executive, so that a military man who wants all the powers allocated to him will find the constitutional process palatable and join it so that we can have a democracy. So they did a good job, didn't they? They convinced the military strongman, J.J. Rawlings, on the armored car holding an AK-47 to drop the AK-47, jump off the armored car, wear a suit and a tie, and sit in the Land Cruiser and go to Independence Square, stand without taking a salute and watch the parade without being military, because the powers that he wielded as a military officer, as a military ruler, were the same powers that the Constitution granted him. In those circumstances, we believe that let's look at the provisions. The provisions of Article 146 were guided in a certain way. It was intended so that when the Constitution takes effect, hopefully with Rawlings' ruling, and he was unhappy with some high-profile public official over whom the NDC and the military did not have control towards his appointment, either as a Supreme Court judge, as a justice of the Superior Court of Judicature, or as a public official, regional tribunal head, electoral commissioner, all of those things, that if the military junta were unhappy with some appointment that had been made on their blind side because of the circumstances of the time, Article 146 will be available to be able to get them removed by impeachment. So if you look at Article 146, it is such that the real decision-making part of Article 146 is whether or not there's a prima facie case. If a prima facie case is achieved, the accused person usually does not survive. And he does not survive because of Clause 8 thereof. It says, all proceedings under this article shall be held in camera, and the justice or chairman against whom the petition is made is entitled to be heard in his defense by himself or by a lawyer of an expert. Now, why are these provisions being held in camera? Now, in camera, viewers, means that it is held in secret. There's no media. There can be no coverage. You cannot apply for the record. I don't even think that RTI will work, because RTI, that's the right to information, is an act of parliament. And an act of parliament is inferior to the constitutions of the provision, the provisions of the Constitution, so that an act of parliament cannot override Article 1468, which is directly prescribing an in-camera hearing. Now, the reason why it is in-camera, as we fathom, is because the military people did not want a situation where they needed a judge removed, a Supreme Court judge removed, a Court of Appeal judge removed, and then the general public will get wind of what questions were asked him and why he was removed. So they say that all such proceedings will be held in camera. So if you are accused of something, you go in camera, and then the report comes. And you see, at the end here, it says that the president shall, that is 9, the president shall in each case act in accordance with the recommendations of the committee. That's quite serious. So the president doesn't have a view on the matter. So they're trying to sort of insulate the president from the processes, but those processes would have been completely controlled by the government of the day. So let's wait and watch this space. But in our next edition, we'll come with some very detailed analysis of why we are where we are with the current Chief Justice. And we all remember Professor Mills, may he rest in peace. And he said in his time, when he became president, there was a lot of pressure on him for this process to be used to remove the learned Chief Justice of the day at the time, Georgina Theodora Wood. Professor Mills stood his ground that he was never going to accept something like that. And he told friends of his that he's a law professor, he's a law-abiding citizen. What is the point about trying to remove a Chief Justice because when you were in opposition, you claimed that her posturing was wrong? Professor Mills stood and said that I cannot do that. And then he told the Chief Justice, and then at a state function, he invited the Chief Justice for a dance, so that my friends, may he rest in peace, also Alhaji Bature, who were calling for the blood of the Chief Justice, they will see that the president has a very cordial relationship with the Lord Chief Justice. And Georgina would not serve this country well. She served this country absolutely well. So that was the spirit of Professor Mills. And that's what he did in 2009. And I'm not so sure why anytime the NDC comes to power, there's this clamor for remove the Chief Justice, remove the Chief Justice. It happened in Professor Mills' time. I do also remember that during the Professor Mills' time, President John Dramani Mahama, who was the vice president, was very much against this thing about people wanting to remove Georgina Wood. I remember that he was one of the voices of conscience in the castle over this Georgina Wood matter. I remember that clearly. I've been a news reporter forever, so I was already a news reporter at the time. So I remember that. But let's see how these things shape up, and let's see if time changes people or if it doesn't change people. We'll find out. But because of this, I'm putting up this NDC rally song because Professor Mills' name is mentioned in it. This looks like very, very dangerous times for the sustenance of our democracy. Tonight, we have a big program on the Attorney General's press conference. And by the time we finish, you will see that it is not complicated if anyone suspects that these are dangerous times for the sustainability of the democratic principles, for the sustainability of the law, rule of law, and for the sustainability of law and order in this Ghana and under this constitution. Let's hope that it is not what we think it is. Over to the NDC rally ground.
Yo, Atami to mama and DC double, what I say? Debeko, Atami to mama and DC double, Atami say NDC double, to mama NDC. Atami say NDC double, to mama NDC. Ami say Atami NDC double, to mama NDC. First lady Lord NDC double, to mama NDC. Susu mutia obianya di ata miskaye hu to mama nie emesa ata nie
Ata Mills NDC. For our big story today, we'll take a break before we do it. It's about the Learned Attorney General's press conference with over Kwabena Aduboahene. And I must say that on a very personal note, I was very, very disappointed. I was very embarrassed, and I was unhappy with what happened because Kwabena Aduboahene, I know him well. I think I can vouch for some significant level of integrity of him. He sat next to me at the NCA board, and everybody on the NCA board remembers Kwabena. He's a very intelligent electrical engineer. So when I heard the stories, I first felt, this one. But as time is going on, you see that things are unraveling. And we are beginning to get to the bottom of the matter. And we are beginning to see whether somebody was stealing a public show or whether there's real substance to a criminal allegation. We're going to get to that in sufficient detail tonight. But just suffice it to say that the story is drawing MPP and NDC. And this is an NDC versus MPP story. But it's funny if you look at it as MPP and NDC story. Because if you go behind the curtain and you observe the processes, you will find that Kwabena Aduboahene here is very, very close to John Dramani Mahama. Kwabena Aduboahene, I'm not suggesting is an NDC person. No, I'm not. Far from that. And I'm not suggesting he's an MPP person, far from that. He's a distinguished public servant who does his work as national security. By the time MPP came to power, he was already a deputy director at national security. He was promoted because of his sheer intelligence. I mean, if anybody who has engaged Kwabena Aduboahene will say that he's a very intelligent man, but put that aside. So Kwabena here is a deacon of the Assemblies of God Church. You know, when I was, okay, I won't say that, leave that. Kwabena is a deacon of the Assemblies of God Church. The same Assemblies of God Church, the same assembly of President John Dramani Mahama. In fact, it is said that sometimes the two of them can co-chair some of the committees in the church. And who is the pastor of the church? Dr. Wengam the favorite of many, I mean, I think the all-time favorite radio pastor in Ghana, all-time favorite radio pastor in Ghana is Pastor Wengam. Pastor Wengam is the pastor of both John Mahama and Kwabena Dubois, and both of them are quite close. Now, Reverend Esio Mensah here also has a story in the conversation, because Reverend Esio Mensah has a relationship with John Dramani Mahama, and which relationship with John Dramani Mahama also translates to his raising of Kwabena Dubois. So as far as Kwabena Dubois is concerned, John Mahama, President Mahama's home, is also his home. And he doesn't shy away from frequenting President Mahama's home as often as he can. He's very well known to the family and very well known to the First Lady. This is the backstory that we'll be bringing to you after we have done the legal analysis tonight. You can't miss that. Father Wengam, good evening. How are you? And people have been sending me videos of Pastor Wengam's mother's funeral, where Kwabena Dubois was the main MC and President Mahama was a big part of the whole event. Everyone knows Father Wengam's relationship with President John Dramani Mahama, but Father Wengam has the same relationship with Kwabena Dubois. And between Kwabena Dubois, John Mahama, Father Wengam, Reverend Esio Mensah, First Lady Lordina Mahama, they are all very, very close on the religious platform. More on that coming up shortly. So after that, yes, it's birthday celebration for Dr. Sian Ejapong, and so we have a montage for him, which we will play just before we take the break. After the break, we are in Dominic Ayene's press conference with all the details. Lawyer Balfour, who is a member of Parliament for Menchia South, will be in the studio to give us the legal analysis and the explanations and his own take on the Attorney General's press conference. But now, though, our father cannot be celebrating his birthday on the 20th of March, and we say nothing about it. Sian Ejapong is a big blessing to Ghana. We all know that. People say that he's both NDC and MPP because he survives in every regime, but that tells of his tenacity towards his business. Here is a man who started from one business and has churned out so many businesses, and he has impacted so many youth. Of course, there are controversies about him. We know people write things about him, and people try to pull him down here and there, but epoch upon epoch, precept upon precept, Sian Ejapong has survived all the storms and has sat on top and is able to deliver for the people of Ghana and the people of Africa. The serial entrepreneur celebrates his birthday on the 20th of March. Here is a montage. Belated birthday. Happy birthday to you, sir. We love you. After the break, the full story. We'll be right back.
There's nothing worse than your multi-bet missing, but nothing better than having it saved. BetSaver. Kwame and Yao. After hours of planning, both have locked in the same perfect multi-bet. Big win for United, over 1.5. And both teams to score in the London Derby. But who could have picked Leicester over City? Or a high-scoring game at the Bridge? There's nothing worse than having your perfect multi-bet missing. But there's nothing better than having it saved. BetSaver. Win, even if your bet misses.
Anti-cavity, gum protection, brighter teeth, and fresh breath.
I'm a fat missy way.
The patch of Bantama.
Matassa.
It's her smile, the fresh breath.
Me, Jidi said we used to Cal 360 toothpaste. Some kind. Cal 360 toothpaste.
That's Kia. Cal 360 toothpaste. It's a gum protector.
Onim Jom Kasan. Cal 360 did the way. It's cool mint. Gives me fresh breath and your confidence booster.
You so feeling when you know Cal 360 toothpaste.
Happy smile.
Cal 360 toothpaste, anti-cavity, gum protection, brighter teeth, and fresh breath. Cal, happy smile. This advert is FDA approved.
I'm a brand manager. Of course, I accept only quality and affordable printed souvenirs for my promotional campaigns.
I'm the head of academic affairs of a very important institution in Ghana. Of course, we only deal with quality, reliable printing companies for our institution's printing materials. I'm talking about appointed time printing.
Appointed Time Printing. We take pride in our extensive print scope that transform your ideas into captivating visual masterpieces. We delve into the core objectives and vision of each print project. Precision printing is at the heart of our printing process as we meet your tight deadlines. Our rigorous inspection, color verification, and overall printing excellence are assured. 20 years of printing excellence. It's always a pleasure working with you to create a vibrant, dazzling printing experience that gives you a masterpiece. Appointed Time Printing, your world of quality and affordable printing.
Look around. Home also need a makeover. Mine clearly does. So we went to Ashroom and found the Como collection. It had everything we're looking for and more. Matching furniture for the entire home, designed with you in mind.
Where's Como collection? Dressing up is just a breeze. Always ready with a perfect accessory.
A magic dressing mirror. One look and you're ready to face the world. Or at least the kids.
A bed perfect for young men who want
a table that turns into a treasure chest.
And finally, a sofa with this grand TV unit for family time at home.
Head over to any Ashphone store now and discover the new Como collection. Ashphone, feel it, know it.
You the answer to my friend. You with me everywhere. You're my angel, miracle. You're all I need tonight. Give me shelter from the rain. You breathe life in me again. You're my angel, miracle. You're all I need to know tonight.
So what about what your papa
Yeah, this is my secret. Give us P capsules. Emma, I want to go from now on to me to my ding one pen. Give us P capsules. Over do us, Mama. Oh no, enemy lawyer.
Ah, and to lawyer no na show bottom. Are you broke? Are you broke? They na pon me see ba be tia mo a eze ni die.
Bosano.
No. You get if you work out. The friend give us cold capsules. Say yes, is yare na wo so. Ko di do ni pedem wani na wo posa amamman entimi ma wunja wonan yi. Wonum give us cold capsules a. Wo be ye free.
Lawyer.
Give us cold capsules.
And I give us P capsules.
Hey, and I give us free.
Capsules.
And men what if you do what you do, Cronquan, give us core capsules. A painful a batter, one more menu for an inquadawin if you do me no count.
Attention all farmers. Are you ready to take your crops to the next level? Introducing 3 effective organic composts that will revolutionize your farming practices. ACAP, KCAP and IRICOP brings to you the ultimate solution for your fertilizer needs. Introducing the ACAP Grade A, KCAP Equiafua Jinkwa, and the IRICOP with cocoa blends, palm blend and mulch. These are made from locally sourced municipal solid waste, and these are the perfect choice for sustainable farming. Join the organic revolution today. Boost your crop yield, improve soil health, and support sustainable farming practices. Choose ACAP, KCAP, and IRICOP organic compost for a greener and bountiful harvest. For your purchase and more information, call the numbers on your screen. Our products are endorsed by COCOBOD, Planting for Food and Jobs, and the Ministry of Food and Agriculture.
Cratchy, unemu bua unkoisha Dr. Ban uye denwa.
Oh, Mr. Yamfan come and me buruwa.
Mami do buru. Don't ya tell me ko bra. Mumi Yamfan ko Dr. Ban ho. Dr. Ban o ya de. Bra, se ban no mpemu adwuma sasabro slow Dr. Ban oye.
Say na kemi kwa na meka. Oh no mpemu nimdi ono na ye expect nya zanfo no. O akra any Kumasi no mpemu expect yen kan kire.
There's nothing worse than your multi-bet missing, but nothing better than having it saved. BetSaver.
The Queen could well understand with what pride Nkrumah and his people look upon the army. Independent Ghana is a very young nation, only 4 years old. It was not proclaimed a republic until last year. This was a formal ceremony. On the following day came an informal one, the surfboat regatta, and the display of skill used in civil purposes. As Accra is without a harbour, ships have to anchor a mile out in the roads and be loaded and unloaded by surfboat. Each has a helmsman and 10 paddlers, and as they pack 1 3/4 tons of cargo, and the boat weighs 1,800 weights, strength as well as skill is needed to fight the breakers. The regatta was seen by Her Majesty from a mogul pavilion, a portable one which will be much used during the tour. And here's that strength and skill we mentioned. Naturally, the people of Accra are very fond of the surfboats and the men who man them. Today, they have one regret. When the huge artificial harbour at Tema, 6 miles away, is completed, the surfboats will be out of business. Perhaps that was one reason why the 1,000 men and the 115 boats taking part determined to put up a fine show. How well they earned their applause. More of the real Ghana was seen at the Makola Market, an association of 80,000 members. Here the Queen met the people. Indeed, almost rubbed shoulders with them. Every visitor to Accra wants to see the mammies, the plump stallholders who realize that silence has no place in salesmanship. Anyway, it's all...
Super
Now you be Oga. Oh, good evening. Now you be Oga. Good evening. Now you be Oga.
It's 5 minutes past the top of the hour, 10 o'clock, and Kwesi Pratt Jr., our senior man, has been talking quite a lot. And one thing you have to like about Kwesi Pratt, that his love for Ghana is intense. You know, he thoroughly loves this country. That's you have to give to him. He's a left-wing guy, you know, so sometimes we quarrel over that. But he really loves this country, and he understands where this country should be going. He understands the democracy. He put up a video has been put up of him making some important statements. Because if we get on the highway on the Dominic Ayine one, we'll miss it. So I wanted us to listen to it 1 minute, and then we come back and continue with the show. We are ready with the analysis of Dominic Ayine's press conference. Yes.
Begin to look at expertise, people's commitment to the nation and so on. That goes beyond party affiliation. You know, sometimes I get a sense that our politics has become like a war of gangs. You know, a war of criminal gangs. So one of them has captured some territory and is benefiting from it. If you manage to defeat that criminal gang, you establish your domain there like a mafia, and you take control of everything for yourself, regardless of the national interest. And it's a danger that this country faces. This country must be governed as a country. It is one nation of one people with one common destiny. We need to revisit that slogan which General Acheampong in his wisdom introduced. What is happening? My friend, what is happening in our country? So what about those who do not belong to political parties? They are not human beings anymore. So in our country today, if you do not belong to a political party, if you are not a member of a political party, you lose all your rights as a citizen. What nonsense is that? And then, so what? You know, we help you to win election and therefore we have an entitlement. You have what entitlement? This country, and Senna, listen to me very, very well. We went to an election. We elected President John Dramani Mahama as the chief manager of the affairs of this country. We did not sell Ghana to him. Ghana does not belong to him. Ghana does not belong to the NDC. Ghana did not belong to the MPP, and Ghana would never belong to the CPP. What we do when we go for elections is that we elect managers, and they are supposed to manage this country on behalf of all the citizens of the country. If they fail to do that, they cease to qualify as governments. And we must approach this fight against Galamsey with the same vehemence and within the same principle and so on. That's the only way we can move forward.
The only thing I can say about this is that I'm happy Kwesi Pratt didn't find opportunity and occasion to make this when Akufo-Addo was president. He didn't. Because it wasn't like that. Look at the vetting. Justice Sremsai, the Deputy Attorney General, he was awarded a scholarship by Akufo-Addo's Scholarship Secretariat. His NDC leanings were completely known. Very, very well known. Yet, when he applied for scholarship, he was assessed on the basis of his academic capabilities. And he was awarded a scholarship by Kingsley Agyeman Scholarship Secretariat under Akufo-Addo. His name was there. Everyone knew he was an NDC person. But it didn't matter. And that's why I'm excited about Akufo-Addo all the time. For whatever it is. Kwesi Pratt was not able to make the statement so passionately when Akufo-Addo was president. Of course, even though he makes the statement now and he sort of uses the same brush to paint all governments and say every government must do the right thing, which I agree. But when Akufo-Addo was president, you can talk about Galamsey, which would have been legitimate. But you cannot make the statement that Ghana is for him and he's taking Ghana upon himself and a criminal gang has come to operate. Because some people, when they come into power, they truly behave like a criminal gang. It looks like that. For some people, it looks like that. They come and they are taking, they are beating, they are taking, they are beating, they are beating, they are beating ballot boxes, they are beating policemen. Then they take over and the minister says, I've sacked 5,000 people. That's what Kwesi Pratt is describing. And it is very serious. But the consolation is always that the pen will always be mightier than the sword in a democracy. And the people's power will always trump over dictatorship, oligarchy, partisanship, extreme partisanship. People's power will always trump over it. So we like what Kwesi Pratt is saying. Ambassador, good evening, sir. Today I'm on your side, though. Today I'm on your side because the things that you are speaking, only people with such wisdom and profound experience can speak that kind of thing. Today I'm fully on your side. Thank you, sir. Thank you, our father. Thank you for making this statement. Whilst Kwesi Pratt was talking, Okatachi Afrifa was arrested this afternoon. For what? We don't know. For what? We don't know. He is not a government contractor. He is not a businessman who is evading taxes and doing his birthday at Independence Square and GRA is looking for him. He is a journalist, news reporter, presenter, blogger, whatever you want to call it. And he blogs about things that are unfavorable to the government. Over the last 10 days, he has been arrested twice by national security operatives. In one situation, he was arrested after, I believe that he's a part-time student at GIMPA, as many of us. So he had gone to GIMPA to take an exam, and he drove out of the place. And because he's in a class with people, everybody knew that Okatachi has come, and this is the car park, and after that he'll turn this way. All the cars go the same way. The national security people were there, and they picked him up. They interrogated him, they left him. He came back on radio and continued on his blogging platform and continued to do what he's doing. This afternoon, just before the rain started here in Accra, we were told that Okatachi Afrifa has been arrested. Lawyers are scrambling around this evening, talking to him and finding out how they can grant him bail. What is all that? What is all that? What is all that? But that's the news for you. That's a big story. So the two stories that came out just before we went into press, unpalatable. The first one we've dealt with the three petitions that Felix Kwakye Ofosu says have been shipped from President Mohammed's desk to the Council of State. And then this arrest of Okatachi Afrifa, the journalist type guy who is blogging on topics and themes that are unfavorable to the ruling government. That's what we are hearing tonight. It's 12 minutes past the top of the hour. Can we have text messages now on what people are saying about what we've been doing so far? Shall we begin with Fatih? Yes, okay, Fatih first. What are people saying?
All right, thank you, Poso. Still on the story of the CJ, Samuel Fosuba says, what judicial errors have the respectable Chief Justice of the Republic done that calls for her removal from her decorated office? Why do we involve political ideology in the constitutionally third arm of the government to create hatred, doubt, and distortion in the judiciary? I will appeal to the members of the CSOS and Catholic bishops and the traditional religion leaders to rise up and guide the president to act as the father of all. We are united people and don't need politicians to divide us. President John Mahama must allow the ladyship Chief Justice to complete her constitutional mandate given to her. Now, Junior Akbar from Tamale says, our current president is trying to much as possible to remove Ghana's Chief Justice to amend our constitution the way and manner they want it. No matter how long it takes us, we shall bounce back to save Ghana. Rex Kweku says, the petition against the Chief Justice is a design scheme that has an end target. The main target for the NDC so eager to remove the office of the EC chairperson. The removal of the EC chairperson has to go through the Chief Justice, which the NDC knows very well that the current Chief Justice won't entertain such action against the EC chair. So in order to achieve their aim, the Chief Justice has to go first. Yao February says the government released letter for the petition to remove the Chief Justice of our judicial arm of government. It's nothing to confirm Prof. Azar petition for the removal of the CJ. We Ghanaians, we told in the opposition that the Chief Justice was not fit to stay because most of the cases their party people pursue went against them. So this release is a confirmation of their saying in opposition and the attempt of their allies. God knows, Charles says, the Chief Justice did a lot of politics in the courts with her utterances and rulings. This doesn't surprise me. Decisions like these used to be rare in our democracy until the Charlotte Osei removal happened and everybody lost their voices at the time. Mohammed Yusufa says, I will clap for NDC if they sack the Chief Justice. The needless delay of the anti-gay case, which led to many Ghanaians to believe that the NPP supports gay, is enough for her to go. She thinks she was doing Baumia. I pray they sack her. Yafebre says the Attorney General just withdrew the cases he was defending as lawyer against high-profile appointees in opposition, but this same AG is prosecuting past government appointees in the public jurisdiction without going to the court to trial and recover the perceived looted cash preached by his outfit and the government. This tactic by the Attorney General is just to intimidate the past government officials. Aaron Babaku says corruption remains one of the crucial challenges Ghana is facing right now, affecting resource allocation, foreign investment, and social equity. A sustained effort is required from the government, civil society, and citizens to combat corruption and restore faith in the economy, ultimately fostering a fair and prosperous society. And lastly, coming from Yalfebi, says the government's reset agenda did not prioritize its own accepted policies like the game changer 24 hours economy. What do you have for us?
Okay, so again from Yalfebi, he says, we were told by this government and the Attorney General that they have received a huge document and an estimated cache of cases from the oral committee. So they are going to prosecute and recover all the perceived looted state funds received. Therefore, the Attorney General public prosecution of Mr. Kwabena Edubuahim, his wife, the GIIF boss, etc., without court prosecution and convict is just harassment and witch hunt of former appointees to satisfy their campaign promise that they know it is unachievable. Now, Joe Justice Morik says, a country where Galamsey is destroying our water bodies and what the government is interested in is the removal of CJ. What a shame to the NDC. Now, Abdul Razak says, we live in a democracy and NDC must allow Akatache to continue his work. He does it without insult. Captain Smart and Co. attacked the NPP even with insults and nobody interfered with their work. Emmanuel O. Owusu says, Mahama and his NDC think they are more than the US, more than us who do not support any party. He should tread cautiously because there is only a limit to everything. Mahama, be careful. Now, Wycliffe Ababio says, Kwesi Pratt and his people denigrated President Nana-Addo, knowing perfectly that the great Nana-Addo was innocent of all their stupid accusations. Paul, you are gradually losing us. Be straight with your die-hard listeners and sympathizers. Finally, Desmond Owusu says, sensible words from Kwesi Pratt. Dangerous times for the country's democracy. All right, so do you have anything else for us, Fatih?
Oh, yeah, so coming from Emmanuel Boama, Emmanuel says, Mahama has initiated a process to remove the Chief Justice, but the real target isn't the CJ, it's the EC chair. His plan is simple. Once he replaces the CJ with someone of his choice, he can easily collaborate with them to remove the EC chair. This is a clear strategy by John Mahama and the NDC, but they must remember that power is transient. Okay, do you have anything?
All right, so O'Neill France says, the arrest of Akatache is nonsensical, baseless and bogus. As for the Attorney General and his needless press conferences, it's just to seek public trial of the suspects. He discontinued all NDC personality cases who were before the court, yet chasing MPP appointees. Would they arrest Captain Smart, O'Neill, Amponsa, Amsterdam? That's from O'Neill, Amponsa, Amsterdam. Now Kwanda Osman says, you NDC, serious at your own peril. The president is not even brave to exercise his executive mandates. Why not just ask the CJ to leave office straightforward? Why run around the clock? 2028 will be interesting. Now back to you, Paul.
Yesterday, I had to go deep into myself as a news reporter of a few years. And I had covered many attorney generals. I've never seen an attorney general make his case against the accused person without having charged the accused person in such an elaborate manner as Dr. Ayine did yesterday. I mean, by the time Dr. Ayine finished the press conference yesterday, it was clear in everybody's mind that Kwabena Dubois is a big thief. I thought that was unfortunate. That was a low point of our democracy. That was unbecoming of a distinguished minister for justice. I felt so sad because it is not about partisanship. It's about the pride of the democracy. It's about the pride of having systems that work. Many years ago, I traveled to Cote d'Ivoire in 2011 with Raymond Archer, the journalist, and we went to interview Laurent Gbagbo. We all felt very proud as Ghanaians. In fact, Kwesi Pratt led that team. We all felt very proud as Ghanaians when we were telling the Ivorians that in Ghana, we have so many radio stations. That time there had been an election that was conflicted. And we said in Ghana, this will never happen. The Electoral Commission will mention the results and that's it. And we felt very good about ourselves, that our democracy was ahead of the Ivorian democracy. Media plurality was ahead of the Ivory Coast media plurality. I remember Kwesi Pratt was shocked that, hey, they don't have a single private radio station since 2011. So there are things about our constitution and there are things about the conduct of our public officers that can make us proud, whether it's NDC or MPP. What happened at the press conference yesterday in relating to the cases? I thought, I appreciate Dominic Ayine saying that he only come to us with cases that he has investigated. But here he was talking about Solomon, that Solomon was running away from justice. And the next day, Solomon issues a press statement, almost suggesting that the learned minister for justice was lying. I mean, how? So I put here the face of the late Col Swansea, so that it might give us some inspiration. You see, when you go to the Manchester United dressing room at the Old Trafford, you see the photographs of Dennis Law, of Sir Bobby Charlton, and it's supposed to inspire the new generation. I don't know whether in the dressing rooms of Kumasi, Asante Kotoko, they have Baba Yara, Infum Kofi Tufo, Kwesi Appiah, Opoku Afriye, Kofi Bedu, Francis Kumi, those old players that inspire. Whether House of Folk have the Fearsome Five, Samson Lamte, Peter Lamte, Ofe Ansan, Nana Benyi Krensel, Shamokwe, whether they have that. But these photographs are to inspire the new generation. So with a very heavy heart, I put out these photographs so that we might be inspired. And please beg Dominic Ayine that this is the history of attorney generals. Not all of them have been MPP. Not all of them have been CPP. Not all of them have been NDC. But they have all kept at least that very distinguished characterization of our attorney general, who does not offend the Latin maxim nemo judes in cosa sua. He doesn't offend the Latin maxim. And he doesn't offend the Latin maxim of hearing the other side. But for what's here the other side? Hearing the other side. What's the Latin for it? Oh yeah, I mean, it's just escaped all of us. But a judge is not, you cannot be a judge in your own cause, and you always have to hear the other side. You should not be a judge in your own cause as nemo judes in cosa sua. And then hearing, you must always hear the other side. These attorney generals have all, as far as the record shows, have abided by that principle. Even when the Quality Grain trial was on, and I covered Quality Grain every day, and at the end of the process, journalists, including international journalists, will approach the Attorney General Nana Akufo-Addo and say to him, how is the case going? And he always said the same thing. Auditorum pattern. And nemo judes in cosa sua. No Attorney General has made an attempt to violate these principles. Yesterday, I saw those principles buried on their head when I watched the press conference of Dr. Ayine. Attorney General Akufo-Addo will tell the press during the trial of Quality Grain, they'll ask him that, do you think the accused persons are guilty? You tell them, no. We are going to make our case. We've continued to make our case. The defense will make their case. At the end of the day, Justice Afreh will decide. And then he'll be smiling. And then he goes away. They ask him that, do you think the verdict? He said he should ask Justice Afreh that. This was in the days of 2001, when everybody was excited about Kufuor's administration. They are going to catch some thieves and they are going to deal with some NDC thieves of 20 years old. Attorney General Akufo-Addo resisted ever to comment on the process of the case. I remember I interviewed Dr. Obed Asamoah in the year 2000 after the very heavy Supreme Court case of the voter ID card. It was a big matter that sharply divided NDC and MPP. Obed Asamoah made his arguments in the Supreme Court forcefully. When he left the court, I rushed to him with a microphone and I said, Doc, how do you see the court? He said, he asked me, how did you see it? And I said, well, I think it was good. Do you believe that the court will agree with you? Then he stopped. He was walking. He stopped. He said, these are not questions you should ask me. The Supreme Court panel has sat. They have heard me, and they have heard Nana Akufo-Addo, and they have heard Mr. Zuenis. They will make a decision. At 2 o'clock is what they said. Can't you wait for 2 o'clock? That's what he told me. And I was very excited by that. Betty Molde-Idrisu, when she was Attorney General, there was so much pressure on her that she should try people, she should convict people, she should try people and convict people. And sometimes she walk out of court and the media will ask, he says, no, please. She said that I have been a Solicitor General of the Attorney General's Department before I became Attorney General. We are not supposed to conduct our case in the press. We will not conduct our case in the press. And everybody used to remember that phrase, we will not conduct our case in the press. That was Betty Molde-Idrisu. Martin Amidu, hardly ever heard, speaking to journalists, Benjamin Kumbo. And I'm using the NDC examples. And Dr. Ayeni was Deputy Attorney General to Marietta. Viewers, did you ever hear Marietta ever, as Attorney General, trying any case publicly and telling people that this person is a thief and I'm coming after you? Civil servants, I'm coming. Attorney General and Minister for Justice threatens people that if you are like Justice Oduboah, I'm coming after you. Anyway, for the purpose of the history, this is called Swansea. He was the first African Attorney General. The first Attorney General was not an African, even though it was after independence. His name is Godfrey Bain, a very distinguished Irish barrister, was our Attorney General then. But after him came called Swansea. This is Dr. Obed Asamoah. This is Nana Akufo-Addo. This is Papa Osuan Nkrumah. This is Ni Ayikwe Otu. This is Joe Gatti. And I remember Joe Gatti. Again, I covered the quality grain. Did I say quality grain? The MV Benjamin. The cocaine MV Benjamin trial. I covered it on a daily basis. Every day I was in Joe Gatti's office. Never once, whether when he set up the Georgina Wood Committee or when the trial started, did Joe Gatti ever grant any interview, even after the people had been charged. They had been charged though. They had been fully charged. The trial was on. Gatti never ever granted. And he always told the media that, what do you think? And he'll be joking with them. What do you also think? You're asking me. I'm not the judge. When they say the court is the judge. I'm the Attorney General and I'm doing my prosecution. And then he will smile about it and he will leave. Never once did Gatti do any such thing. If I roll it over this way, Gloria Kufu began the trial of Opuni. Did you ever hear anything? Godfrey Dame here. And somehow, I don't know whether Dominic Ayeni has issues with Godfrey Dame. I understand from what happens in the Attorney General that he will ask that the Godfrey Dame step here, then he won't step there. That's not. We'll come to that. But I remember during the Atu Forson trial, Atu Forson was Minister of Finance today, when Godfrey Dame was Attorney General. NPP people were attacking Godfrey Dame that why did you allow Atu Forson's statement to be taken in Parliament? He should come to a police station and take the statement. Who does he think he is? And Godfrey Dame told them that, but he's a member of Parliament of the minority. Parliament's a place where we can find him. So if you can find him in Parliament, what's the problem with it? They said, you have to go to his house. Dame said, for what? He should do that. Atu Forson's statement was taken in Parliament, in the comfort of his parliamentary office. That's where his statement was taken. He was given a self-recognizance bill. That means he doesn't have to pay any money or put any money up. That's why Godfrey Dame did the Atu Forson trial. The same Atu Forson trial that became, they've forgotten, or they remember, they will say it, Atu Forson. The court people went to Parliament that he may make his statement. And then today, what do we see? Attorney General. Wow. This was something. Dr. Dominic, good evening to you, sir. This one was something. Attorney General finished trying the accused person, buried him. And as you heard in our promo, the only thing Dominic Ayeni did not do about the press conference yesterday on Kwabena Edubuahin was that he was unable to pronounce a sentence. That's the only thing he couldn't do. And why couldn't he pronounce a sentence? Because as we said in the promo, trials are not conducted in the media. Anyway, end of that story. Now, let's come to the main one. So, Dominic Ayeni yesterday said that Kwabena Edubuahin had stolen money, he had diverted, but he gave all the details of the investigation. He had bought 27 houses at 295,000 cedis at the same day. He had taken money that belongs to the National Signals Bureau and he had used it upon himself. He and his wife, they had misappropriated 39 million cedis and $7 million. All kinds of allegations were mentioned yesterday. With all that kind of information Dominic Ayine has, he told the press that he is yet to charge Kwabena Edubuahin. He has not charged him, whether for stealing, for fraud, defrauding by false pretenses, causing financial loss to the state. No charges had been preferred against the accused person. No charges. With such comprehensive, what looked like a comprehensive investigative report, the Attorney General, who was holding this comprehensive investigative report where he knows how the guy bought a ticket and changed his ticket and bought it again and changed it again, he even said that the guy bought a ticket in somebody's name. And we're asking the IATA people whether that is possible. The response coming in so far is quite negative. But we want them to write formally to us that it is not possible for somebody to use. So we've written to IATA to the Attorney General in Ghana says that somebody bought somebody's app. Is it possible? So after he had such painstaking investigation that delivered so much fact, the Attorney General thought that it was better to first do a press conference before he charges the accused person. He hasn't charged the accused person. Today, as I speak, he has still not charged the accused person. Having all this gamut of significant information pointing to the committal of an offense, the Attorney General is yet to charge Mr. Edubuahin. Anyway, then came Atachian, who has become counsel for the accused person. And here is what he says. On Thursday, the 20th of March, 2025, Mr. Kwabena Edubuahin arrived at the Kotoka International Airport on a British Airways flight from the United Kingdom. It is totally false that he flew economy class to disguise himself, as Attorney General was strenuously projecting it to be. Our client was in the business class, a fact which is easily verifiable. It begets belief. Did the Attorney General say that the guy was flying in economy class to obscure his identity? But again, it's so easy. Just take the boarding pass. It's so easy to verify this. Anyway, it begs belief that a criminal should be audacious enough to fly out of the jurisdiction through the Kotoka International Airport, a security area, and return on his own free will to Accra while the criminal routes of the Togo and the Ivory Coast borders are safe. Options available. Okay, let me jump to the next one. On his arrival at the airport, Mr. Edubuahin reclined at the commercially important persons lounge. A ruse was created that there was immigration issues with his passport and he was wanted at the open place where the passengers of all aircrafts landing at Kotoka International Airport check out. Our law-abiding clients got into the open space only to be handcuffed for public ridicule and ferried to Yoko cells where he is still languishing. The next day, Friday, the 21st of March, 2025, his wife walked to the premises of Yoko to find out how her husband was doing, and she was immediately arrested. Rehearsed criminals do not voluntarily go to the place of the arrest. They run away and become fugitives from justice. Again, when the undertaking is persecution, it is easy to confuse decent and well-cultured Ghanaians from common criminals. As at today, Atachian says, Angela has been incarcerated by Yoko on the account of what the Attorney General is using to contaminate our clients in the press and unprofessionally expose them to public opprobrium. It is difficult to come to terms with the fact that the Attorney General is comfortable with the press where there is no proof beyond reasonable doubt. The Attorney General has become the press persecutor of our clients, a judge in his own court, while simultaneously asserting that he is still investigating the case. This is counterintuitive. We do not believe a change of government through constitutional means should degenerate into a reset version of full rule of law in which the press is fed with a pathetic, one-sided and untested position by the leader of the bar. This unmitigated prejudice with defamatory consequences will be prosecuted in the appropriate forum. We are shocked that at the press conference, the Attorney General was even entertaining himself with issues of plea bargaining when the statements of the suspect are yet to be taken. It was even laughable that the ages of Angela was lost on the Attorney General, given the fact that Yoko has seized her British passport, which obviously had her biodata. Kwabena became the Deputy Director of the National Signals Bureau in 2016 during the NDC time in government. The MPP in power did not jettison his competence and vast experience in the field. Kwabena had been doing business well before he was appointed by the MPP government to the high office of director. I was very much surprised this morning when our clients were denied the right to counsel by EOCO with the reset constitution that I could not have the confidentiality of talking to my clients and giving them the appropriate legal advice prior to interrogation unless an official of EOCO listens to the lawyer-client solemn engagement. This reset rule of law defies my modest 31 years of legal practice. In today's Ghana, says Atachia, the Attorney General is acutely aware he has violated the rights of our clients relating to not more than 48-hour incarceration, constitutional prescription, and tells the whole world that he can play with the bail issues by releasing our clients and re-arresting them. Well, so that's what happened. They said Kwabena Edubwahin has stolen, he's done this, he's done that. They are still not charged him. Laura Bafo is here, so I'm going to rush to him now. But before then, this is an article which we have verified and would like to show it to you. It's written by P.K. Sapon, and he's writing and whispering from the corridors of a thinking place. Okay, so this is it. P.K. Sapon says, Kwabena Edubwahin is not a politician. Dominic Ayini should stop misinforming the public. Kwabena Edubwahin owns Glofet, a multi-million-dollar company and one of the biggest, if not the biggest, fertilizer company in West Africa. The Attorney General and Minister of Justice, Dr. Ayini, during his press conference to itemize the cases involving some individuals his office has investigated, created the impression that Kwabena Edubwahin of Signals Bureau, appointee of Akufo-Addo, is an MPP member who has acquired wealth and property that defy logic. It is hereby stated that Kwabena Edubwahin is not and has never been a member of the New Patriotic Party. He is not a politician and has always been a businessman. He is not an MPP NDC matter. It is imperative that these facts are made available to the public about him. Kwabena is the owner of Glofed, a multi-million-dollar company and one of the biggest, if not the biggest, fertilizer company in West Africa, which owns the biggest fertilizer blending setup in Ghana. This entity has loans from banks, including the ECOWAS Development Bank, which it services diligently. Glofed did many business with Cocoa Board when Dr. Stephen Opuni was the chief executive officer of the entity. He and his wife, Angela Eje Boateng, own several other successful businesses in and outside Ghana. He has been owning businesses long before 2017. It is important to point out that Kwabena has been working at Signals since 2007. He was a public servant under President Mahama serving as deputy director. He rose through the ranks and became director when the MPP came into office. He owns properties running into several millions of dollars. He has been owning many expensive cars, including Ferraris, G-Wagons, Range Rovers, and others before 2017. Dr. Ayini should stop creating the impression that the gentleman and his wife acquired all these properties and built these businesses when he became director of Signals Bureau. This ugly haste of making this a partisan case is not only reprehensible but mischievous. If he has done anything wrong, he should be put before court. If he has done something against the state, he should charge him and stop linking him to the MPP. It is quite perplexing that Kwabena Edubwahin has not been charged by the Attorney General yet. He is being persecuted in the media. The nauseating habit of prosecuting people in the public domain when they have not been sent to court must end. This is not how our laws work. Dr. Dominic Ayini should stop hiding the fact that Edubwahin owns properties and businesses long before he became director of the Signals Bureau. If these facts are not available to him, then his investigators are incompetent. Now, we did a little bit of check on the company called Glofed, and I'll show you what we found on their website. They are a fertilizer manufacturing company, and they are quite wealthy, as it says. What is Glofed? Here it is. Glofed Limited is a wholly owned Ghanaian fertilizer blending company in Ghana, having the largest blending factory in terms of output capacity, producing 48,000 bags, 50 kilograms per day. Viewers, you can calculate how long he's had Glofert and how much he could make from there. Glofert focuses on improving crop production and ensuring food security through excellent yields by providing environmentally friendly, affordable, and quality fertilizers to farmers in Ghana and across the continent of Africa. This is a news story in 2019 where Ghanaian company Glofert establishes a 4.5 million fertilizer factory at Esuboi. The company sent $4.5 million and invested it in Esuboi. $4.5 million. That's some money, isn't it? That's huge money. $4.5 million. He invested it in Esuboi. Now, these are some of the things. Glofert launches Ghana's largest fertilizer producing company, and here it is again. I think I can see Dr. Baumia in there. The Glofert launches, viewers, listen, Ghana's largest fertilizer producing company. Remember, Ghana is the second largest producer of cocoa in the world. And so any company in Ghana that is the largest fertilizer processing company in Ghana has a lot of business through Cocoa Board, and that's why it's not surprising that the company was working with Cocoa Board. All of these facts are available, but these facts were not showed at the press conference. We'll get there. We'll get there and deal with it. We'll get there and deal with it. Okay. Now, let me just go to Dr. Bafo. What are they showing me? And I finished with Glofert. Thank you very much. Bafo is in the studio. We're going to start with the Chief Justice question. Before then, though, let me take text messages. I'm sure on this Kwabena Dubois and Dominic Ayini, there will be some text messages. Shall I begin with Fatih in the circumstance? Yes. Okay, Fatih, what are people saying?
Thank you, Paul. So coming from One in Town, says, I made some observations posited by you on this program, where I sought to precisely point out and question the modus operandi of our learned Attorney General's irrationality in accusing individuals even before charge. A few of my friends misunderstood this and missed the point of my venting. However, the rule of natural justice demands odi alteram partem, an absolute obligation to hear the other side before any judgment is passed. Put simply, it's the doctrine that upholds the presumption of innocence until guilt is lawfully established. The Attorney General, of all people, knows this rule intimately and, without exception, seek for political expediency and act of propagating propaganda. Yet, instead of upholding this principle, he appears content to fuel a narrative of wrongdoing long before any charges have been brought. The individuals in question, what remain by law, innocent. What, then, is the purpose of such inflammatory public commentary? Am I right to infer and impugn that may be a calculated move, a prelude to claiming vindication should the court ultimately acquit the individuals mentioned and claim the court if fixed with all NPP appendages, just as it has always been? If so, then this is deeply troubling and concerning strategy to adopt respectfully. At this stage, it's difficult to comprehend why the Attorney General, the very custodian of justice, would resort to such unpalatable and prejudicial methods in making his case. Joel Wilson says, when this Attorney General was cautioned by the Supreme Court for contempt, then I said this man is just bad. And lastly, coming from Yao Febri, says this press conference by the Attorney General was needless in its sense. He should send all the evidence in his possession to court and prosecute for the court to give its verdict, but not to the unnecessary verdict he's given. What do you have for us?
All right, so Samuel Kweku Alote says this continuous removal of appointees by new governments who gets voted to power is gradually becoming cringy. Petition for the removal of the CJ is really disturbing. We must all stand up against these actions without partisanship. Now, Emmanuel Hall says, what kind of Attorney General is this? You allow $200 million of Saglemi housing to go to waste, $58 million of SNIT OBS scandal, and go chase $2 million Sky Train scandal. What a shame. In response to that, Kwabena Boampong says, can't you see how useless and brainless his deputy is? You ask him a question about A, and he will be answering with Q. Is that not embarrassing? Now, Isaac Abuaji says, with all that is happening now with the NDC bastardizing the NPP appointees, calling them thieves, is an orchestrated attempt to convenience Ghanaians that even though they couldn't do anything at the end of the 4 years, so Ghanaians should still vote for them. They don't have any credible candidate to compete against DMB, so this is their plan. What I know is that Ghanaians will look at what the government has done and not what the opposition is. Now, finally, Agatha Affle says, Paul, you always make my day on Tuesday nights. God bless you. You are indeed a blessing to Ghana. Thank you. Now back to you, Paul.
Okay, thank you so much, viewers. And my phone is crying, is buzzing. Apparently, Oketechi has been released. He is back at home, just released right now, and he's back at home. We'll try and get in touch with him so we can talk to him. The last time, he was busy writing exams, so he couldn't grant us an interview. Okay, there's another petition to remove Bosman Asare and Srebo in gear for me. No waste about it. Somebody is asking that there should be a petition to remove Bosman Asare and Srebo. Lawyer Bafo, good evening.
Good evening, brother.
The Ghana Bar Association has news in the news today. The communications director at the presidency says 3 petitions for the removal of the Lord Chief Justice have been forwarded to the Council of State. What will be the feeling among the barristers?
In my humble opinion, I don't think that the constitutional provision regarding the removal of the CJ was included in the Constitution in vain. I think was included in the Constitution
in vain.
Where
it says for the Chief Justice,
it envisages the possibility or some circumstance arising requiring the removal of the Chief Justice.
Yeah,
and so I wouldn't be surprised if anybody, puts forward such a petition, because it is expected that somebody may trigger that provision. The question, however, is whether it satisfies the procedure set down by the Constitution. Because, you mentioned the case of Ejechu. The Constitution also envisages the abuse of such a provision. And so has ensured that, it won't be triggered just by the mere feeling of it by anybody, or just by the person perceiving, merely that the CJ, ought to be removed. And so the Constitution has got its own procedure. And so when you look at the case of Ejechu, for instance, you will discover that the president at the time, President John Agyekum Kufuor, in consultation with the Council of State, had set up a committee to remove the Chief Justice at the time, Justice Aban, because Mr. Bright Akwete, a very senior lawyer, had petitioned President Kufuor for the removal of Justice Aban, saying that he had not handled some disciplinary matters involving some judges properly. And for him, that constituted a ground for the removal of the CJ at the time. So he sent a petition to
the
president. When he did, then Mr. Frank Ajechu, who at the time used to work for the Statesman, also went to the Supreme Court with Nana Santibedi as his lawyer and Nana's father leading Nana at the Supreme Court, saying that, this provision, the president ought to have established a prima facie case, right? The essence or the philosophy behind the establishment of a prima facie case is to ensure that, just as I said, it's not a provision that can be triggered merely because somebody feels or perceives, on some basis or flimsy basis that the CJ should be removed. And so that position has been established. Now, when you look at what has been brought out, to some extent, it doesn't say whether or not the president had previously established a prima facie case. Because when you look at the case of Ejechu, the Supreme Court dismissed the case on the basis that there ought to have been established a prima facie case before the consultation, before the subsequent consultation with the Chief Justice to constitute the committee of inquiry, or involving 2 justices of the Supreme Court, right, and then 3 other persons who are not parliamentarians, who are not lawyers.
Yeah. So what Ofosu-Kwakye says now is that the petition has been forwarded to the Council of State. What does it mean? Has the prima facie matter been decided and determined, or is the Council of State going to do it?
It is silent on it. It is silent on it. And all it says is that the president is in consultation with the Council of State in respect of 3 petitions.
But is it the Council of State he consults with for the prima facie, or is the Attorney
General? It is the
General?
president that establishes the prima facie.
By himself?
By himself. You see, when you look at...
He's not directed to take advice from any particular place?
When you look at Article 146, you have 2 types of proceedings that possibly can take place under Article 146. You have the proceedings in respect of justices of our Superior Court and Regional Tribunal. And then you have the proceedings in respect of the Chief Justice.
That's what we are talking about now.
Yes. When you look at the proceedings in respect of the justices of our Superior Courts, right, it says that when the president receives a petition, he will forward the petition to the Chief Justice, who will establish a prima facie case. And then when a prima facie case is established, right, a committee will be put together. That committee will now inquire into the merits of the petition. But when you come to that of the Chief Justice, the Constitution was silent on whether or not a prima facie case will have to be established. The Constitution was silent. So in the Jechu matter, the Supreme Court, right, said that it cannot be that a prima facie case will be established in the case of the Superior Court judges, but not in the case of the Chief Justice. Because in any event, the Chief Justice is a judge of the Superior Court before being a Chief Justice. And so there ought to be a prima facie case being established. More importantly, too, to also protect the Chief Justice, because, Paul, it will unsettle any Chief Justice. If today you hear that a petition has been sent against me, tomorrow you hear that a petition is pending against me, it will unsettle anybody. It will take somebody with a very thick skin to survive that psychologically. And so it's important to protect that office by ensuring that not every petition that comes that we act on. And so there must be the establishment of a prima facie case. And so the Supreme Court established that but as a matter of principle, which is now the position of the law. Now, in this petition which has come out, right, it is silent whether the president had previously established that indeed a prima facie case has been made.
But if the president hasn't and he does not intend to, would he be out of law?
That would be unconstitutional.
How? Because you are saying that it's silent on it.
Because the Supreme Court has by way of interpretation, right, included the provision or the requirement for the establishment of a prima facie case.
So that case law has now become
the law.
Established procedure.
It's the law. Yes.
So the president must establish it. But should he not establish it before he transfers it?
He should.
So should we not assume that he has established it?
We can't make assumptions.
Yeah, but does he have to tell us that he established it?
Paul, in law, you don't make assumptions. You see?
Yeah, but does he have to tell us? Could it be in the letter?
I would have.
The letter that he sent to the Council of States, could it be said that from His Excellency the President to the Council of States, I, President John Dramani, having established a prima facie case on these 3 petitions, now do hereby, pursuant to Article 146, forward it to you. Thank you very much.
Okay. So
could he not say that to the letter?
He can, but let me share something with you. According to the Constitution, the proceedings ought to be in camera.
The real proceedings?
Yes, including
this one?
Yes, we don't have to know.
Yeah, but Akufo-Addo has said in the case of other Chief Justices that I did not establish a prima facie, my petition is dismissed.
Because he had made a decision on it. Because President Akufo-Addo at that point had made a decision on the matter. And
so you are saying that once the president makes a decision one way or the other, he needs to tell us?
Yes, so the proceedings had truncated.
Yes, he's dismissed it, yes.
So you see, when you look at the case of Anas, when the Anas petition when the case of Anas and the judges matter came up, there was a challenge by Justice Derry at the Supreme Court saying that the proceedings ought to have been in camera, and it includes, right, first and foremost, the petition which commences the proceedings. Secondly, the determination of whether there is a prima facie case.
That all should be in camera.
All should be in camera. And so nothing should come out. The Supreme Court agreed with him and said that, yes, we agree with you. However, the breach does not void the process, right? But in a J-Chum, the Supreme Court said no, right? Even though there ought to have been a prima facie, yes, there ought to have been a prima facie determination. Because there was no prima facie determination, it is unconstitutional. And so that is the difference. Here, the Supreme Court has already determined that we agree that it ought to be in camera. The question is it in camera? By this communication, are we going to say that the proceedings is not in camera?
No, but the communication doesn't affect the fact that it's in camera. Communication is just telling us that the president has received the petition.
So it doesn't talk about the petition?
No, it won't.
It doesn't also talk about whether or not the president has also already established a prima facie case?
All that they are assuming is in camera.
That's right. And so it may well be that the president has already established a prima facie case. We don't know.
It is looking like that because he's transferred it from one desk to the other.
But at this point, Paul, I don't want to make assumptions.
No, wait. It goes to the Council of State, comes back to the president.
No, it doesn't come back.
They set up the committee.
That's right. They set up.
The Council of State set up the committee.
They set up the committee in consultation. The president sets up the committee in consultation with the Council of State.
So maybe that's what he's doing with this letter.
Yes, but I am saying that because the letter doesn't disclose, right, the facts. One, the petition, the name of the petitioner, whether a prima facie case.
It's to, or the communication to.
If the communication had done that, would have infringed upon the Constitution.
Absolutely. So the communication did the right thing.
It did the right thing.
And I'm asking you that, are barristers tonight going to be worried that the president may have made the prima facie position and that he sent it to the Council of State and they are going to soon announce the constitution of the panel?
Is
one Supreme Court or two Supreme Court judges?
I'll tell you, I am worried.
During the pendency of the process, is the Chief Justice still Chief Justice?
The president can suspend him, suspend the Chief Justice.
During the pendency?
Yes.
It's in the law?
Yes, Article 146 clause 10.
Oh, in the same Article 146?
146.
The 10 says what?
The 10, the president was in consultation with the Council of State.
May decide to by signing a warrant to suspend the Chief Justice. During the pendency of...
Yes. It appears to
in
be...
that case, who will do the work of the Chief Justice?
The most senior Supreme Court judge.
Who is the one there now?
Justice Bafuboni.
This is frightening.
Very frightening. Paul, this from yesterday, or for some time now, let me say this. I've been pondering on a lot of things. I think that to be the president of a country, you need a big heart. You should be like a mother who is ready to overlook so many things. Especially in the case of President Mahama. This is his final term. A second opportunity by God to make an impact and leave a lasting legacy. I would plead with him to choose the path President Kufuor chose from the year 2001. You see, when President Kufuor came to office, there was also pressure on him, not just to prosecute people, but to also visit vengeance on President Rawlings and his administration.
Boot for boot.
Boot for boot. The lives that were lost,
businesses that were
collapsed.
They wanted, it was true, they really wanted Kufuor to crack the whip.
There was a lot of pressure on him. I remember growing up in Kumasi, where some people in the business community, their relatives had suffered, imprisonment, abuse of power, and so on and so forth. They have become victims of it. A lot of people looked forward to the change of power and were hoping that there will be consequence.
The Rawlings will be dealt with.
It will be dealt with. President Kufuor takes over power and says that, look, enough is enough. Let's set up a National Reconciliation Commission, right? And let's move forward as a nation. And only God knows, we can remember the blessings we received as a country. I want to plead with President Mahama that look, we cannot develop as a country in this manner. If you touch the Chief Justice today, tomorrow, if we are unlucky and we have a president who is also vindictive and also receives pressure from his party people, we are going to see the same. It's going to be like how the Flagstaff House changes name with the change of a president.
Yeah, President Mahama hasn't changed it.
Yes.
He's kept it.
But I'm saying that historically has been the problem we've had. And so I am saying that with the greatest of respect and humility to the president, we know him previously to be a man of big heart and had boundaries.
A political moderate.
Political moderate. We are praying, I'm hoping that he's not going to succumb to the pressure. It is going to affect the building of this country and it's going to set us back.
But what could, what's the Chief Justice's name again?
Gertrude Torkornoo.
Gertrude Torkornoo. What could Gertrude Torkornoo have done against the state, against the office of the Chief Justice, against the image of the Supreme Court that can warrant a petition? I'm shocked.
I don't know the facts.
Yeah, but we will never get to know.
Yeah, but you see, Paul, the NDC has always taken the view that the judiciary is unfairly structured against them in terms of composition. They've always taken the view.
I have heard Fosu Kwakye say that.
Exactly. And so perhaps they think that this is the way to balance.
Metro TV, insightful and inspiring moments.
Has Christianity always been one of the religions in the world to you?
Oh, hallelujah. Praise God. Christianity is not a religion, neither is it a joining of a church and doing the Christian things like praying and giving and so on. Hallelujah. Christianity is the outworking of God's own kind of life received into the spirit of a man. Whoa! This divine life in the heart of a man makes him righteous. It keeps him healthy, divinely guided in life, prosperous and victorious. It gives you the ability to enjoy intimate fellowship with the Father and have dominion on this earth. Hallelujah.
Yes, in every generation on
No. We are interested in making sure that there's a fair balance. There's a fair balance in terms of the information being given to the public, and then the protection of the person's reputation, right? In fact, the person's name ultimately. So what happened yesterday, that for me is where I disagree with my Edward is not a politician, he's a civil servant. And so when I speak on this matter, it's not as if I'm defending a member of my party. I've never met him anywhere, but it's a matter of principle that we need to make sure that people are not tried in the media. Well, we've, for instance, seen several press conferences by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. To my surprise, I get to know that after the many press conferences, he only has in court.
Which one?
The Republic versus Ajeni Mboateng Ejeyi, who is not a politician.
Mm-hmm.
The Republic versus Sumaila Abdul Rahman. Mm-hmm. The Republic versus Alexander Kwabena Safo Kantanka. Mm-hmm. Just 3 cases after the many press conferences.
Hmm.
And so the point we are making is that we need to be careful. For instance, we had several press conferences about somebody like Madam Cecilia Adapa by the Office of the Special Prosecutor. She was tried in that the case is not within his remit. What it simply meant was that it was not a corruption or corruption-related case, because that is what the Office of the Special Prosecutor has power to deal with. Mm-hmm. However, this woman had been bastardized in the media, right, for being corrupt. Mm-hmm. Meanwhile, the prima facie case against her in terms of corruption or corruption-related offense. And so, going by this history, I get worried when people are tried in the media. Names are very important. We may well end up with the person not being tried after all. Already, you'd have destroyed the person in the media. The person has family. The person has
Justice
children.
Sremsai, speaking on CTFM this evening, was strenuously defended the position that what Dominic did was not a public trial, that he was not trying anybody in the media. He defended it. I don't know why they don't have it. So CTFM with Umar Sanda, Sremsai strenuously defend. Let me take text messages, Lawyer Jebafo, and then I'll come back to you for the wrap-up because it's 7 minutes past 11 o'clock. And I begin with Kobe first. Fatih, sorry, you wanted to start. This time it's men's first before ladies. Kobe, you start.
Our February starts by saying, your illumination removal of the CJ. Now, Richmond Kofi Ejipong says, Paul, with the greatest of respect, it's false that the president has to establish the prima facie. The decision in Frank Eje Chum establishes that the Council of State is the body to establish the prima facie case. Afterwards, the president can institute the committee laid maintain that NDC is our problem in this country. All the appointees are just going wrong, making allegations, creating impression that they are working, but they should know we know them more than the way and manner they know their self. You can use propaganda for the good people of this nation to vote. Your people should go and work and stop doing press conference. Now, finally, Raymond Inso says, good evening, Brother Paul. The resetting NDC government has no faith in the current court system, so they have decided to take the alleged cases to the public tribunal. This action by the Attorney General is just pure partisan propaganda to discredit the previous
Richmond says, with the greatest of respects, it's false that the president has to establish the prima facie. The decision in Frank Ejechum established that the Council of State is the body to establish the prima facie case. Afterwards, the president can institute the committee laid down in clause C like that. Academically good, but in high office practice. Otu Evans says, I'm really surprised not even a law student will behave like how the AJ is doing now. If you have any evidence against people perceived to have caused some financial loss against the state, one incriminated Kwabena Dubois, I think he has completely forgotten the very law syllables he was lecturing at the law school. This same person will, after the NDC has lost run, back to the lecture hall to confuse innocent students. Now back to you, Paul.
The decision to remove CJ Aqua.
Aqua, sorry.
Yes, Aqua was doing
it's Aqua, yes. It's Aqua.
What would be your conclusion? Concluding remarks tonight, lawyer.
See, when you take over power, there will be a lot of pressure on you. But you need to be careful. Unless you are careful, Paul, you will do so many. And so I am urging the Attorney General that nobody is saying that you should not prosecute corruption cases or cases he suspects of involving corrupt persons. But he should approach it with tact. In fact, yes, he ought to be public and put forward facts that are unverifiable, facts that are yet to be tested in the courts of competent jurisdiction, right? In the manner which suggests a public of the person. When you know that conviction doesn't lie with you, that really is my final comment.
Well. We try to discipline ourselves that after past 11 we have to leave it. We have so much else to share. Thursday we'll be back here, and we still will bring you the full concluding interview on Thursday's edition of Good Evening Ghana. So much to talk about on Thursday, the details of the Chief Justice petition, the rest of the Dominic Ayeni story. That's this and the other. Thanks for watching. Good night.